you just a drill?
Yep.
Welcome to Paddle and Portage Ice Update. If you plan on drilling any holes through the ice in the boundary waters or adjacent this winter, mid-February 2025, you're going to want to hear this. What are you hearing, Freddie?
I got a report from Chad, our buddy Chad, at Gunflint Wilderness Guide Service. Fishing guide, outdoor adventure guide, Chad up the Gunflint. He reached out on February 11th and said, Joe, here's the deal. We are getting to the point where the ice is so thick, over 3 feet, you're going to need an extension on your auger in order to drill a hole.
This is where we do like the record stop, like that's a big deal.
It's a big deal because, note the date, it's February, it's mid-February. And we've run into this situation before where, like, you're spinning your auger. I happen to have my auger right here, by the way.
It's literally in Joe's hands. And actually, it's, nobody cares about this but me, but it's a really nice pastel blue with some, like, neon yellow handles and a blade cover. I mean, it's the most beautiful auger I've ever seen.
Nils USA. So, the thing about drilling a hole in the boundary waters, of course, non-motorized. So you can't even have an electric auger out in the BWCA. And so you're hand cranking, drilling the holes. It's been probably 3-4 years at least since we've had this issue where, it's getting close. I know when we were out with Ely Eric a number of years ago fishing.
Quite a few now.
Yeah, quite a few years ago. That, like, your handle as you're spinning the auger is going to run out of real estate. It's going to hit, your hand's going to hit the ice.
Yeah, how... From the blade to the handle is what is that? 3.5, 4 feet? 4 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a bit like this last little bit, maybe 5 inches of it is when your hand's gonna start hitting. That's where you run into the danger zone, so to say.
Right.
And it's hard to crank, and
you're on your knees in the slush.
Yeah, and that's just ice. So there's a fair amount of snow up there too. So in order to get down to the ice and have that, radius of where the motion of the hand as you're drilling goes, like, you need to have that cleared. So you got to get that area completely cleared out so that your hand can get down there. They do make auger extensions. That's what Chad's talking about. I mean, and they're a bit kind of cumbersome. They cost money, for one thing. I'm sure Nils has them. I know, like, the Eskimo and the other types of augers have those extensions, but they make it kind of wobbly. They're not as nice to use. You don't want to use them unless you have to.
But you can, like, drill, you can auger down, and then when it gets low, you can put the extension on. And then, you can continue drilling. So you're not, if you're willing to take the time to do that, I'm sure that's super obnoxious for folks to do. But otherwise, you're dealing with an auger that's, like, up over your head.
Yeah, they're not as long as you might think. It doesn't, like, sort of double the length of it. It's going to get you another foot, maybe 18 inches, something like that. Most of those extensions, I'm sure they probably have some crazy long ones, but a lot of those are for gas augers or electric augers. So these hand crank ones are a little more cumbersome to use. Had to use them in the past, and it's not something that I want to do by any means. Not to mention, you're still drilling through frickin' 3+ feet of ice. That alone is a exhausting thing. I was telling Omaha Eric Dicketts the other day, like, he comes up fishing, he's got to know where he wants that tip up. The luxury of, like, pop a hole here, we're off by, a few feet in the depth we wanted, pop one there. Like, that's gone. You've got to drill your hole, and that's where you're going to be fishing type thing. Mm-hmm. So it changes how you can engage with ice fishing in places like the Boundary Waters. I'd been out with Rockwood Mike the day after the mail run. February 9th was the last day I was out ice fishing in the Boundary Waters. And we found this to be true. Like, there's a lot of ice. It was just, we kind of were not putting two and two together like, oh, we're going to run out of room with the auger here soon. And Chad, when he reached out just the other day, was saying, we're in the middle of this new cold snap. Brutal cold, double digit, 20 below type stuff up the Gunflint.
30 below on the map this morning.
Right, and over toward Ely. Like, the whole Boundary Waters is just crazy cold this week in mid-February, right before Valentine's, and it looks like it's staying that way into next week. So Chad was saying, just in these past couple days alone, he's noticed a difference, and he is the one that mentioned auger extensions. We appreciate Chad, we trust him, but of course, we had to go back out and find out for ourselves. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Tuscarora Lodge and Canoe Outfitters. Located on Round Lake, Tuscarora is a full-service Boundary Waters outfitter serving Gunflint Trail entry points. They're now booking 2025 canoe trips and cabins. Check them out online at TuscaroraCanoe.com or on their Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook pages at Tuscarora Canoe. They've been busy up at Tuscarora. Ada and Andy have been on the ski trails and sharing their updates that they do during the winter months, so check them out there for sure.
My name's Chad Keeper, Gunflint Trail resident, live up at the end of the trail.
What are you seeing for ice conditions, ice thickness, slush, quality of the ice? Because you get around to a lot of different lakes in the Boundary Waters and Gunflint area. What are you seeing here in mid-February?
Definitely more ice than last year. No shortage of safe ice, and we're still making ice. I mean, with these temperatures we've got going. The small lakes, as usual, froze up first. They had better ice, and the bigger lakes, Gunflint, Sag, Seagull, took a little while longer to button up, but they caught up fast. So we're seeing probably now, the last actual measurement I made on Sag was over 25 inches, and that was a couple weeks ago. So we're probably now we'll be pushing 30 maybe by the end of the month. Mm-hmm. We haven't had to pull out the extensions yet on the augers, but it could happen.
Yeah. And what type of extension for like a Nils auger and then, more like an Eskimo kind of old school type auger?
Yeah, I haven't looked into the Nils extensions yet because I've never had to. But this year might be the year that I'm going to have to do it. But generally, it'll be anywhere from a 12 to 16 inch, shaft that you can connect on both ends to just extend it a little bit. For power augers, we've had them for years. So I have a Strike Master Electric, and for that one, I have a 16 inch extension bit that goes between the auger and the power head. But for the hand augers, I will be doing my research to figure out what I need if we get to that point.
Because on like the Strike Master or Eskimo augers, that's sort of red or blue, old school traditional ones, that's like the handle is the extension. It's not correct. Like there's more of the auger component, so to say, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you can put an extension on them, but you're right. It's a shaft that you can extend and put a little key pin in there and keep it in place. So yeah, my 6-inch hand augers, I just extend them to the very end just this week, so that I'm not down on my knees, scraping my knuckles on the top of the ice before I break through. So yeah, I've got mine extended as far as they'll go, and so far no problems. But if we keep these temperatures for another couple of weeks, it could be challenging.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like this is in the forecast to sort of go away, and there's another 6 weeks of lake trout fishing ahead of us and potentially some more ice-making conditions.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, this is not the most extreme that it's ever been, and I don't think we'll reach that point. But I've heard a few folks say that there's other years that it's been worse, close to 40 inches of ice, and whether that's true or not, I tend to trust these folks, so they're probably right. But I don't think we'll get to that part. We have enough snow up here, too, that it's now insulating, especially the smaller lakes where the wind's not blowing the snow off. The ice formation's going to slow down a little bit. But the bigger lakes, there's some spots where it's, the snow's blowing pretty thin, and they'll be making some more ice. So Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to biblical epic proportions this year, but we're doing all right.
Yeah. So we're out here fishing today, and it's cold. I mean, it was 18 below or whatever when we started out, and now the wind's picked up, and so it feels about the same as when we started. But great Josh Dix is here too, and he hooked into a really nice lake trout. What was your take on that experience?
I don't have a lot of experience on this lake, not as much as you guys, but from your excitement level, I could tell this is a big deal. Like it was a epic fish for this lake. Yeah. And I thought he had a medium action rod. And then I asked him, I said, "Is that your medium heavy?" He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, that's even more impressive," because he had a good bend to it. Yeah. So that was a good fish. And sadly, as it goes, lost at the hole, right? I mean, trying to get its head up the hole is what happened, and it spit the jig. But yeah, that was a nice fish. I could tell you guys are pretty excited.
How's your winter been in terms of success with anglers and clients and just the fishing overall?
Yeah, I'd say last year I was busier as a guide, and mainly because we were an ice refuge here, right? There's a lot of clients I had that had to cancel trips at Red Lake or Mille Lacs Lake, and so they looked around the state and to see who had safe ice, and we did. And so I got a lot of that overflow. This year's been a little bit slower, both in terms of people coming through, but also the fishing's been a little bit slower for trout. And I don't know if it's because of, this is a more normal year. Last year without the snow and stuff, we did fish harder because we could get to more spots. We could be more mobile, and if fishing was slow in one spot, you could just go across the lake and yeah. And this year it's more normal where you can, especially by snowshoe, set up in a couple spots max, and you're pretty gassed by the end of the day. So that could be part of it. But yeah, we're still getting fish, and we're still getting some decent fish, and you got to put your time in. But if you do, you'll get them. Because
there's some drifts, there's some deeper snow on some of these lakes, and the temperatures have been pretty cold too, that it's just not as we're not as mobile as we were last year, as you're referencing, Chad. So that's definitely a factor in potentially the success rate. Like last year, we were flying all over. We'd have been over there. It wouldn't even be a second thought to go over there.
Yeah, the wind would just push our gear over there on that glare ice last year. It was a piece of cake. But yeah, you got to put a little more effort into it. And then these cold temperatures too. By the time you get there, you're just a sweaty mess, and it's just not pleasant being out there. And it takes a long time to dry off again. So you got to keep that safety consideration in mind too. So But yeah, well, I don't know, if we get motivated, we'll make a move, right?
All right. Well, it's nice to be out here on the ice with Chad, and hopefully we'll find a couple more fish today. We got a couple on the ice already, and somebody will get a meal out of the day. But just nice to be out here, even with these temperatures.
Oh yeah, especially the sun's getting warmer every day, and so that's helping make it pleasant out here.
Do you want to get into some critical analysis, since you are a journalist, as to why the ice is like this now? What was going on at the beginning of the season that made this happen?
If you recall our New Year's trip, you skied out. You and Corey skied out on New Year's. Great Josh Dix and I were winter camping, came out and hung out on trout opener.
Yeah, it was an awful ski because there was no snow to ski on the lake, so we were like shuffling on mostly bare ice.
Well, and it was cold, double-digit negatives then on that trip.
Absolutely. Poor Corey was not equipped. It was a hard lesson that he learned on layering, but yes.
So then a couple of days later, you, me, Oregon Bill, and Cousin Jeff are out, and you were skating around on that trip.
Still, and that was a little over a week later.
It was like the 5th of January, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
17 inches ice on that first week of January. And that's on a big lake. We were on a big lake, and there were 17 inches.
One of the biggest lakes on the eastern side of the wilderness, 17 inches, beginning of January. No snow cover. Now, that is an important thing to note.
That's the key. So that insulation barrier was not there that can slow it down. Let's look back to last year. We didn't have hardly any snow, but we didn't have these cold temps. There was 4 inches of ice when we went out in the first week of January in 2024. And now this year in 25, 17 inches. And that was the same 1 year later to the day.
So the idea is that the show started with over a foot of ice more than last year. 13 inches more year to year.
Exactly. And it just continued. We've had a lot of cold. We've had some snow. Now we got reasonable amount of snow, but it doesn't matter. It's just so cold. It's been so cold that this will probably be the year that you need to have an extension on your auger if you want to keep fishing into March, which historically for us has been some of the best fishing. Certainly the best weather. In terms of, you can fish outside all day. It's light until so much later in the day.
So usually a little warmer.
Usually a little bit warmer, just comfortable, more fun. The fishing's usually pretty darn good too. Not going to happen if you don't have either an extension or you're hauling out some kind of crazy bar to bash through, but that weighs more than an extension. I mean, maybe...
and it's way more labor.
Totally.
Yeah, we got to hit up Aaron and ask about the saw thing.
Yes.
Because maybe there's a benefit to that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. And Nils is the one that make that saw that they have been taking out with them on Lost Lakes. Same company.
Yeah. If you got a hot tip on your own secret for getting through the really thick late season ice, this is not a new thing. This is actually more of a typical thing that we've had a reprieve from with our warmer winters. So if you got a hot tip on what you do for late season thick ice, let us know at paddleandportage.com.
The other thing about this, we've been talking primarily through the lens of fishing, but you got to have water. It's nice to access. You can melt snow, but it's so nice to have a hole to get water when you're winter camping.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing. Doesn't matter if you're fishing from the hole or whatever. You still need to get into the hole and drill it all the way through. It doesn't do you any good to drill 3/4 of the way through. There's no water coming up.
Right.
So this isn't just for fishing. Primarily, we're talking about it through that lens, but it's broader than that.
Yeah, I mean, if you usually have... anybody uses an auger for any purposes. I know there are a lot of winter campers who don't haul augers along with them if they're cold camping and they're just trying to cover miles and they're, melting snow, but... I think you and I have settled into our preferences here. Especially I prefer that you carry an auger out for me.
And Bear Paulson, he doesn't fish, and they take an auger on their winter trips.
Absolutely.
So just be forewarned that there's a lot of ice, and it's coming up on Valentine's Day. Still really cold across the wilderness.
If you're planning a romantic getaway for Valentine's Day, don't leave the auger extension behind, or you might find yourself in the lake this Valentine's Day.
The other thing about this auger that I have in my hands, it's a little known fact, is that it also doubles as a guitar. Down.